Okay, let's get right into it. We're looking at a source that gives us a pretty unique, and you might even say provocative, take on 2,000 years of history. It's all framed through this very specific religious lens as a story of conflict and consequence.
So, where does the story begin? Right at the turn of the millennium. The source zooms in on the conflict between Jesus and the Jewish authorities. And, according to this narrative, that single event is what kicks off this whole long history of what it calls divine retribution. All right, so let's jump to the first major turning point in this whole story. According to the source, it happens just a few decades after the time of Jesus. The specific year we're talking about here is 70 AD. The source points to this as a really pivotal moment. It says that 37 years after Jesus' ascension, a Jewish rebellion against the Romans, well, it led to something catastrophic. And in this version of history, this wasn't just about a war ending, not at all. The source argues this moment marked the beginning of a huge, profound shift for the Jewish people. You see, this expulsion is what created something the source calls the Dawr-e Intishar, or what we know as the diaspora, a period of dispersion that in this telling would go on for almost 2,000 years. So for the first few centuries of this diaspora, the source paints a picture of this kind of three-way conflict, right, between the Roman Empire, the Christians, and the Jews. But then, around 300 AD, something big changes. A major power shift happens. And this really lays out the change, at least as the source presents it. Once the Roman Empire converts to Christianity, the whole dynamic shifts. The speaker claims that the persecution changes, it gets way more intense, and it's aimed specifically at the Jewish population all across Europe. Okay, now the narrative jumps forward a bit. We're moving to the 7th century, and the focus shifts to the rise of Islam and its initial encounters with Jewish tribes in the city of Medina. This is a really central claim in the source. The allegation here is that the biggest division in Islam, the Shia-Sunni split, wasn't something that just happened organically. No, it was supposedly engineered on purpose from the outside by just one person. After that, the story takes another big leap forward in time, this time to Muslim-controlled Spain. And the way the source talks about this period, it's very different. The source makes this claim that Jewish communities actually helped the Muslims conquer Spain back in 712 AD. And because of that, they were supposedly given these positions of great influence and prosperity. This is what the source calls their golden era. But here's the twist in the narrative. According to the speaker, this newfound influence wasn't just for prosperity. It was allegedly used to mastermind another huge religious split, but this time inside Christianity. And this, the source claims, is what led to the Protestant Reformation. Yeah, this alleged engineering of the Protestant Reformation, it's framed as the absolute final, most critical piece of the puzzle in this whole 2,000-year story. So, what was the big result of all this? According to the source, it was a fundamental shift in Christian thinking. The argument is that these new Protestant movements started seeing Jews not as, the killers of Christ, but as the original people of the book. And that just completely changed the old dynamics. Now, this is pretty interesting. The source actually pulls in a quote from the philosopher Bertrand Russell to make its next point, that this new brand of Christianity, with its renewed focus on the Old Testament, became, exceptionally aggressive. And to back this claim up, the source points directly to some pretty violent passages from the Old Testament. The argument is that these specific verses were brought back to the forefront of Christianity after the Reformation. And the source presents these passages as the literal ideological fuel for the fire, for the violence that it claims was just around the corner. So, in this narrative, when you see the bloody crusades kick off around the start of the second millennium, that wasn't random. It was the logical, violent endpoint of this whole religious transformation. So let's wrap this up. The really crucial takeaway here isn't about deciding if this history is right or wrong, factually accurate. It's about understanding the perspective itself. It's a narrative where these massive world events are all explained as the result of hidden religious plots and deep, ancient conflicts. It's just a really powerful example of how faith can be used to build a very, very specific story about our past.